This week, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis announced he wants the legislature to take up a bill banning critical race theory from being taught in schools or to allow businesses to provide sensitivity training on race. In the case of schools, parents would be allowed to sue school districts if they think critical race theory is being taught.
Republican State Senator Manny Diaz is likely to sponsor the part of that deals with schools, and he spoke to CBS 4's Jim DeFede about it.
I have been working on the education piece of that and really working on not necessarily CRT directly, but talking about teaching accurate history, making sure that both the good parts of our history and the dark parts are taught accurately, and making sure that students are prompted to have a critical thinking and a discussion about it. I think when you start to have the view of the professor or the teacher inserted in this and come from a perspective where everybody starts at the same place where there's racism is automatic, I think that's problematic.
I'm fascinated by this because I hear the phrase critical race theory used a lot by Republicans, although I'm not 100% sure if there's a common definition. What exactly is critical race theory in your mind?
In my mind, that's the million-dollar question. But I want people to understand critical race theory is not a curriculum per se. There are books written on it. It is a theory. But you can take any curriculum, and basically it's the lens by which you pass the teachings of that curriculum, the perspective you're coming at, that really alters the curriculum. It's not per se a set of books or what the curriculum is how do you view the Civil War? Was the Civil War an instance in American history where for the first time a country was split apart and fought a war to eliminate slavery, even though slavery has existed throughout the history of the world in all parts of the world and through, with different races and people from different places. So how do you view that event? Do you view that event as a historic event that took place to mark the end of slavery in this country? Or do you view that some other way? That's really how it's couched and really how the theory affects the philosophy or the view, the perspective of the teaching.
But that notion of allowing parents who believe or have the feeling that their child has been injured because something that they can't quite define, that probably cannot be defined even in law, critical race theory, has somehow hurt their child, that just seems to open the floodgates for a whole lot of problems. I'm just not sure how that can work, and whether or not this is really just some red meat being thrown out by the governor in an election year to curry favor with the far right.
I agree with you that it is complex, but one thing has changed with COVID, Jim, and that is, I think we've seen it across the country, is that parents are paying attention more to the education of their children. I think you have to thread the needle. I think there's a conversation here where you have to put some parameters about the definition of this and what indoctrination or whatever that is, as opposed to leaving it wide open. But I do think that what parents are asking for is an avenue to have some kind of recourse.
See, that's a big word you just used a second ago, indoctrination. What you may consider indoctrination may be just simply teaching historical fact. I mean, it's a fact that this country, going back, was a racist country, and that there needs to be some recognition that this country flourished in those early few hundred years because of slavery. And that just a simple recognition of that. Is that indoctrination, or is that education?
I'd say I was a history teacher. I think we have to teach accurate history. Things that occurred have to be taught and have to be explained. But when you start getting into an opinion as to what that meant or slanting it in a certain direction, that's indoctrination. Again, we need to be building critical thinkers and give them the facts and show them that the Declaration of Independence occurred, the Constitution occurred, and while those documents were not perfect, that there have been improvements from that point that were led by some of those occurrences to improve our society and move us forward to the point where we are today, which is clearly much better than we were, 30, 40 years ago. So I think that we have to have all of those, everything has to have context, Jim, and we have to have accurate history, but the discussions have to be open. If you can't teach things from one side or another, and that's where you have indoctrination, when you are only giving one perspective and it is drilled into the student, and then the student leaves only believing or seeing that perspective. Education wasn't designed to be that. Education was designed to have that friction of ideas and that debate, and really have the professor or the teacher be a facilitator of critical thinking, not imposing their ideas.
No, I think that's dead right. And the fear would be that legislation like this could have a chilling effect on teachers who would be afraid that they're going to get sued by parents because of something they may say in a classroom to try to provoke discussion or try to encourage discussion and debate.
All right, you can watch more of this discussion on Sunday morning at 8:30 on Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.